there might even be a few of us in this room who are learning to be shameless. Now, can any of you raise hands to any of these mirrors that these talented ladies put up for you today? What we also have in this room are all readers and some writers. And they would like to know much more about you and your writing process. Each of your protagonist voices, whether channeled through a 9-year-old boy, a 10-year-old girl, or a trio of 20-something women, is distinct and original. In your own personal writer's journey, what enabled you to find your own literary voice, separate or maybe even in reaction to other writers' voices, or the dictates of the marketplace? And who would like to begin?
Well, never the marketplace.
There you are.
I loved I think it was what Mona said. You know, all day I've been nodding my head. Yeah, I would have said that too. I love when you said, Mona, that you write what you want to read. And that's, and I hope that when I write what I want to read, it's what you want to read too. But endless curiosity. I never cease to be fascinated in the range and depth of human stories, and didn't we hear it today?
Yes. Well, you've also created characters, protagonists, who have an endless curiosity, and in the books that we're celebrating today, and are bold, and are brave, and even defiant on occasion. And we love them for that willful determination. So would you please share with us how in your own personal lives you're able to incorporate that same sense of heroic resilience that your youthful protagonists had? Violet?
That's a tough one.
That's why I asked it. But that's why I called on you, because I knew you'd answer it.
I would say I try to live on my own terms, and I suppose part of that comes with being in this space without my family. I come from a very structured culture where it will be different. It will be difficult for somebody in my position. Like I started to say that I was the youngest of my mother's children. So culturally, I am the baby in the family, and that means my sense of self is always compromised either by men in my family who feel like they have to take care of me, by a place where women don't necessarily have a voice all the time. So being here, in a space where I am able to be who I am and what I want to be, kind of allows me to embody the voice that I hope Darling carries, that spunkness and that attitude. I don't know about heroic though, but I am aspiring for that.
Well, that's heroic. So what does it mean to be a hero? I think, and I actually use hero for masculine and feminine, feminine and masculine. Let's put the feminine first for once. Somebody who meets life's struggles and moves through them. And if we're here, we've done a bit of that through the years, haven't we? To move through that. But your point, Violet, is that it sounds like you needed to actually separate yourself geographically from some of those influences early on to not just have the physical freedom, but the sense of psychic freedom and psychological freedom to find your literary voice. Is that accurate?
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
And it's interesting how that has allowed me not just to speak for myself, but the larger collective as well, especially when you are looking at the fact that my first novel was talking about a time that people on the ground were not necessarily able to talk about because, they had the government there to deal with. But I was living outside without that problem, and I was able to engage in the project in ways that I was able to do.
So there was political censorship there, but all of us know that at different times we deal with a kind of personal censorship, not giving ourselves permission to use our own voices because we might offend some family member or some imagined social judge who is going to say, oh, good girls don't do that. Maybe bad girls, but good girls don't do that. So how were you able to free some of these inner censors, if you had them early on, to allow yourself to speak more truthfully about what was important to you, Lisa or Mona?
I was going to say Mona.
You've both nominated each other, so.
I don't understand this question in a way because I really feel like all of us, I can't speak for the other people here, but that in writing, I think sometimes our characters, well, I know mine, are much braver, much more courageous, much more persistent. They survive through things. It'd be over for me really early on, So I think that a lot of, we can give them things that we don't have.
Yes. And that's the beauty of creating them.
Right.
Mona?
Well, I guess sometimes I'm not really a Freudian, but this question puts me in mind of sort of the Freudian metaphor. And it seems to me that fiction exists in some sort of sweet spot between wish fulfillment, and that's your romance novels, your fantasies, and the repetition compulsion. And the repetition compulsion is sort of where the difficult, relentless, ugly truths come in. And so I think we're sort of balancing between those two. I don't know that as a North American writer, I don't know that I've had that many internal censorships. I mean, Philip Roth once said, in the Eastern Bloc countries, he said this a while ago, very little was possible for writers. They were terribly censored, and everything mattered. There was the underground press, and everything they wrote mattered enormously, but it was very hard to get the word out. Here, it's not hard to publish at all. Now, there's millions of things on the blogosphere. Anyone can publish a thought in a minute's time. The problem is that it's hard to sieve out what matters. So I think in some ways we have different problems than
When
censorship.
you say sieve out what matters, do you mean as a reader to find that important
I think as a reader,
story to read,
as a
or
reader,
the
and I
story
think,
to tell?
Well, as a reader, and I think, it's an interesting question. I mean, writers, we would all love to be listened to the way that Havel was listened to, in his time. I mean, in his time and place. There's a way in which I sometimes wonder, would George Balanchine be George Balanchine if he hadn't had that company? And for fiction writer, fiction doesn't really at the moment matter in the culture. It doesn't seem the way it once did. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, every educated household had, the latest Philip Roth on the coffee table. Whether they'd read it or not, it was there. And Philip Roth was a controversial matter at dinner parties. Now, I don't know that there are, I can't think of one book in the last 10 years that's had that kind of, I think people maybe argue more about TV shows at this point.
I was going to ask you about that. If fiction doesn't define us or have that sense of import in our culture, as a generation ago, what stories do? Because we're still enamored with storytellers, and stories still help to define us and explain what life is for us. Is it television? Is it games? Is it the latest full-length Disney cartoon. I mean, what is it? What are the stories that are most important to us right now? If it's not in
Well, to
fiction,
me, it's still fiction and books. I mean, and I think I think we believe, whether the culture as en masse believes it, that there's something to be gained from fiction that really cannot be obtained anywhere else. I mean, there's so much that The Wire can give you. You know, there's great acting, there's an actor can inflect, there's fabulous things, but the one thing that fiction really does have a hold on is it gives you a sort of vantage into a deep internal life. And also fiction makes demands of the reader that these other forms don't. I mean, when you read a book and it really takes you over for a couple days or a week, you're not the same again after that experience. Part of that book remains in you for years and years because of what you've put into it. Real reading is a much more demanding activity. It's not accidental that we, watch TV before we knock out at night. It's a different.
So I love Virginia Woolf's comment about the reader co-creating with the author. So let me ask you about what story was most inspirational in terms of transporting you in time and space, because all of the books that we're celebrating here today had a great power to transport us in time and space. So was there a particular piece of fiction or story that had particular power for you? Joyce?
I'm going to let somebody else answer that one first.
Okay.
Thank you. I always kind of draw a blank. So many.
Lisa's being very helpful in passing the microphone to Noviolet again, so thank
Do
you.
you need a microphone, Lisa?
Actually, my culture prevents me from speaking before people who are older than you. So
That wit that's in the book is here present right in front of you.
no, but there were so many. I can't think of one. But I'll say moving to the U.S. and starting to read widely. When I was growing up in Zim, I wasn't always surrounded by books, and then my reading diet was limited to mostly Zimbabwean and British writers. We used to be a British colony. And then coming here and being exposed to this diversity of writers from all over the world, I read everything I could, and it was reading all those many different voices that I started identifying voices that sounded like mine and realizing that I too could write a story and that it could find shoes in this country in which it could, shoes that it could wear and stand on this ground. I remember voices like Juno Diaz, for example, kind of opened doors for
Yes,
me.
you mentioned in an earlier interview, yes. See, you did name it. You did speak before your elders, and we
Yes,
thank you
which
for
is very
that.
bad. Yeah, I apologize.
Not in certain parts of America, it is not bad at all. It's just accepted, so thank you, yeah.